People who just got Ableton Live to start producing have great advantage over those with years of experience. Not only they have much fun finishing projects instead of making 100 versions of the same mix, but they also don't need to realize that plugins are just stock devices in a prettier package. And yeah, getting aware of that hurts twice. But this video is not only for the beginners. I have some really simple ways to turn anything into multiband and midside effect, but first, let's be honest for a second. As much as you try to look like a pro, delay is just a delay, with more or less options, characters and noises. Speaking of character, once you tap on this panel in stock echo, you get way more options that you would expect from a stock delay device. There is a duck-in option, which I mentioned in my previous video. You can hear how tail is docked with the original signal. It basically allows you to clean up the delay signal. Wobble and noise are pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, so the fancy vintage effect for your lo-fi beats. Unlike the H delay from Waves, which caused a lot of people to lose their minds while searching for the noise source inside the mix.
What the fuck?
Here, the noise is actually disabled by default. Although it gives cool effect, sometimes you want to change the delay time without this. And all you got to do is just turn off repitch, and voila. But things get even better once you switch into modulation tab. So it's basically an LFO to modulate your delay times and filter. There is also an envelope follower, so once I drag it to 100%, it's basically exclusive envelope follower for this signal. Echo, just like any other delay, is also a pretty underrated sound design tool. Once you 4x the amount of modulation and turn into really short delay times, you basically get a flanger effect. You can easily make tape stop effect with Echo older brother. I improved it a little with Free Max for Live device, which opens countless possibilities to dethrone any third-party modulation plugin like, I love you cable guys, but Shaperbox. But I will save this one for later, since I already promised you something. You probably heard a lot, even in my previous videos, how midside processing can drastically improve your mix. Not many stock devices have this option. Instead of burning your savings or waiting for one-of-the-kind deal on plugins that are not that easy as they seem to be, just use utility.
What?
Once you load utility on any track you want and you right click on the width knob, you have option to turn it into midside, which I encourage you to save as default preset since it's way more useful than just width knob. Now you need to create a simple rack. Command and G to group it. Once we get into those chains, let's just duplicate it, and now this one is gonna be mid and this one is gonna be side. Now you can apply any type of processing only to mid or side image. Maybe you want to add saturator. Or maybe if you want your bass to be more present on smaller speakers, let's introduce a little bit of noise on the side image here. So in this way we have clean and crunchy bass, but maybe you want to live on an edge and just introduce a bunch of OTTs on your side image. And speaking of it, there is a second simple stupid way for more advanced processing. And it's not a coincidence that we're gonna need to use multi-band compressor for it. Now I need to delete all of those OTT to actually show you what I mean. So grab a copy of multi-band compressor. It's actually named multiband dynamics in Live in case you didn't know it. So now you need to group it, go to chains and create two other copies of it. For the first one, let's just solo the high band and rename it to make it easier. Same goes for the mid image, and lows, rename it to low. Now, one thing you need to remember is that if you want to introduce a processor which generates harmonics, like for example saturator, and if you're gonna have it like this after the multiband dynamics, the harmonics you generate are gonna leak out to low and high signal. If you want to have them exclusively for the mid part only, all you got to do is just put saturator before multiband dynamics. In case you haven't noticed, this video is a part 2 of me dragging away plugin companies from sponsoring this channel. If you like this unbiased approach and found some value, use the links in description to buy me a coffee or my affiliate link if you want to buy some gear on Tomen. If that's not your cup of coffee, just leave a like since it's more than enough to keep me going. Now let's talk about Shaper without the box. Technically, it's not a stock device but free Max for Life extension. Just like Cable Guy's tool, you can freely draw envelopes. So let me just delete this and I don't know, maybe do something like that. Increase it. You can change the grid. Make it free or snap to the grid. So what this thing does? Well, let's try the Shaper on melody loop, then apply saturator once again. I think I'm overusing saturator in this video, but who cares? Now let's try this curve, for example, map it to dry and wet knob, switch to remote. So it goes from 0 to 100%. Let's make it a little bit slower here. Basic loop is cool, but one-shot option opens way more possibilities with this trigger button. So for example, first thing to do is to make a shaper like this and put it on bass. Then map it to gain knob and make sure it's from 0 to 50%. Once you're gonna switch to kick and place envelope follower on it, then trigger it to the trigger button. You got yourself a free copy of Kickstart 2. I love you, cable guys. There is also a manual option, which I believe they added in the latest version, and it basically allows you to go through this whole envelope with this knob. And that's actually what I used in my improved version of tape stop effect I mentioned earlier. It allows me to control the smoothness of this tape stop effect without changing the automation. That's the smoothest one, and let's just drag it down. It's funny to think that half of this video won't be needed if other stock devices were built like Roar, with LFO envelope modulation as well as midside and multiband processing. Before you dive deeper in this distortion monster, check out how other plugins from your library can be easily replaced with stock devices from Ableton Live. It makes more sense to watch it in that order.